The day my wife Amelia brought Luther home was like any other sunny afternoon. I was lounging on the couch, half watching a rerun of some cooking show, when she walked in with a mischievous grin. She carried a small ventilated box, cradling it like it held a treasure. "Ethan, meet Luther," she said, setting the box on the coffee table. Peering inside, I saw the most vibrant green snake I had ever laid eyes on. Its scales shimmered like emeralds in the light, and its yellow eyes locked onto mine with an unsettling intensity. "Amelia? A snake?" I asked, my voice betraying a mix of surprise and discomfort. She laughed, brushing my concern aside. "He's harmless. Isn't he beautiful?" I wasn't so sure. There was something too perfect about Luther, something almost unnatural. But I loved my wife. If this snake made her happy, I'd find a way to tolerate it. Over the next few days, my wife transformed our minimalist living room into a snake paradise. She bought a massive glass terrarium with a temperature-controlled basking lamp, lush greenery, and hiding spots that looked straight out of a jungle. She even splurged on premium mice for Luther's meals. "Only the best for my boy," she said, beaming as she arranged Luther's new home. Watching her fuss over the snake, I couldn't help but smile. Her excitement was infectious, even if I didn't share it. Luther seemed content too, coiled gracefully under the lamp, his eyes following my wife's every move. For a while, everything was fine. My wife would spend a few minutes each day talking to Luther, stroking his smooth head and marveling at his beauty. I found myself relaxing around him, even joking about how spoiled he was. But as the days turned into weeks, I began to notice something odd. At first, I chalked it up to my wife being an animal lover. She had always adored creatures big and small. But her fascination with Luther started to feel different. Every evening she'd sit by the terrarium, talking softly to the snake as if they were old friends. Sometimes, I'd catch her staring into his eyes for what felt like hours. "He understands me, Ethan," she said one night when I playfully teased her. I laughed, assuming she was joking, but her expression remained serious. "He's just a pet, Amelia," I said gently. Her gaze flickered, almost defensive, but she didn't argue. Instead, she returned her attention to Luther, her fingers tracing the glass as if in a silent conversation. One night, I woke up to find the bed empty. Groggily, I stumbled into the living room and froze. There she was, sitting cross-legged on the floor, with Luther coiled around her shoulders like a living scarf. "Amelia," I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. She didn't respond at first, her eyes fixed on Luther's glowing gaze. Finally, she turned to me, a serene smile on her face. "Go back to bed, Ethan," she said softly. "We're just bonding." Something about the way she said, "we," sent a chill down my spine. The late night vigils became more frequent. I'd wake up at odd hours to find Amelia in the living room, always in the same position, with Luther coiled around her. I began to wonder if I was imagining things. My wife seemed fine during the day, her usual cheerful self. But at night, it was as if she became someone else. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. "Amelia, this isn't normal," I said, confronting her after another sleepless night. She looked at me with a calm I couldn't understand. "You're being dramatic, Ethan. He's just a pet." But he wasn't just a pet. I could feel it in the air, in the way Luther's gaze seemed to pierce through me, reading my thoughts. It was a Friday evening when things took a turn I could no longer ignore. I came home to find the house filled with a faint, sweet-smelling smoke. The living room was dimly lit, with candles arranged in a perfect circle around Amelia and Luther. She was chanting, her voice low and melodic, in a language I didn't recognize. Luther lay in the center of the circle, his golden eyes glowing in the flickering candlelight. All of a sudden it seems like they crossed a threshold of closeness. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice trembling. Amelia turned to me, her eyes reflecting the same golden glow as Luther's. You wouldn't understand, Ethan, she said, her tone distant. My heart pounded. This wasn't the woman I married. That night, I had the most vivid dream of my life. I saw Amelia dressed in ancient robes, her hair adorned with golden ornaments. She stood beside a massive snake that shimmered like molten gold. The snake wasn't just a creature. It exuded power, reverence, and authority. Amelia looked at it with a mix of love and devotion, as though it were her equal, or more. I woke up drenched in sweat, my mind racing. Sweetheart, I whispered, looking at her sleeping form beside me. What's happening to us? But she didn't stir, lost in her own dreams, or something far deeper. The next day, I couldn't hold back anymore. I confronted her. Over breakfast. Amelia, I need answers. What's going on with you and that snake? Her expression softened, but there was a sadness in her eyes. You deserve the truth, she said. What followed was a story that shattered my understanding of her. As a child, Amelia had been part of an ancient ritual, something her family never spoke of. Luther wasn't just a snake. He was a spirit, a guardian, and more, a husband from another realm. I tried to escape it, she said, tears streaming down her face. But the bond is unbreakable. I didn't know what to say. How do you respond when your wife tells you her soul belongs to a spiritual being? Over the following days, I wrestled with my emotions. I loved Amelia, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was competing with something far beyond my understanding. Amelia, for her part, tried to reassure me, but her connection to Luther only seemed to deepen. Luther began to grow, both in size and presence. His shimmering scales seemed more radiant, his gaze more intense. The air in the house felt heavy, charged with an energy I couldn't explain. Even when I was alone, I felt watched. Desperate for answers, I reached out to anyone who might help. A local shaman warned me to tread carefully. This isn't just a snake, he said. It's a spirit. To confront it is to risk your soul. That night, I decided to confront Luther. Armed with a knife and shaky resolve, I approached the terrarium. Before I could act, Luther lunged, transforming mid-air into a man with golden eyes. She belongs to me, the apparition said, his voice like thunder. I stumbled back, my courage dissolving. Amelia appeared behind me, her face calm but resolute. Ethan, she said softly, you have to let this go, for both our sakes. The days after my confrontation with Luther felt like a blur. I could hardly sleep, and when I did, the dreams returned. Every night I saw Amelia draped in gold standing beside that shimmering snake. She looked serene, powerful, and then entirely out of reach. I needed answers. I began researching everything I could about spirits, rituals, and snakes in mythology. But none of it seemed to fit what I was experiencing. Frustrated, a week later, I came home to find Amelia preparing for something. The living room was transformed into a sacred space, filled with candles, incense, and symbols I couldn't decipher. What's happening? I asked, though part of me already knew. I'm completing the bond, she said softly. It's the only way to bring peace, for both of us. I felt a surge of panic. Amelia, you don't have to do this. We can find another way. She shook her head, her eyes full of sadness. This is my destiny, Ethan. It always has been. I watched helplessly as she began to chant, her voice rising and falling like a haunting melody. Luther shimmered in the candlelight, his golden eyes locked onto hers. The air in the room grew heavy, almost suffocating. And then, everything went still. In the stillness, I found myself in a vision. I stood in a vast, glowing field, with Amelia and Luther before me. A voice, deep and resonant, echoed around us. Ethan, you have a choice. Accept what is or walk away forever. I looked at Amelia, her face calm but tinged with sorrow. She didn't say a word, but her eyes begged me to choose wisely. The weight of the decision pressed down on me. Could I accept sharing her with a spirit, or would I lose her forever? When I woke from the vision, I knew what I had to do. The house was quiet, and Amelia was asleep, her face peaceful. I packed my bags and left. It wasn't an easy decision, but I couldn't stay in a life where I was only a shadow in her world. I left her a note. I love you, Amelia, but I can't compete with your destiny. I hope you find peace. In the weeks that followed, I tried to rebuild my life. I moved to a new town, started a new job, and focused on myself. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't forget her. She haunted my dreams, always draped in gold, with Luther by her side. Months later, I had a dream so vivid it felt real. I saw Amelia standing in a grand temple surrounded by light. She looked at me with a mixture of love and sadness. "Thank you," she said, her voice echoing, "for letting me go." I woke with tears streaming down my face, feeling both comforted and heartbroken. I heard rumors of a woman who disappeared from the world, leaving no trace behind. People spoke of a priestess and her golden snake appearing in dreams and visions. Part of me wondered if Amelia had fully crossed into Luther's realm, leaving our world behind. Now, years later, I still think of her. I wonder if I ever truly knew the woman I loved, or the forces that bound her. Sometimes, I dream of her, radiant and untouchable, her hand resting gently on Luther's head. I often ask myself, did I do the right thing? Could I have stayed? And now, I ask you, what would you have done in my place? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's discuss it. If you enjoyed this story and want more heartwarming tales like this, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends and family. Your support means so much, and it inspires me to keep creating content that uplifts and inspires. Thank you for watching, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Stay tuned for more stories that touch the heart.